told through the stories of today's leaders in finance, tech, real estate, culture, and sustainability. This is Planet Gold with your host, Enzo Di Taranto.
Welcome to this new edition of Planet Gold, my podcast to re-engineer the global climate agenda at the Horizon 2030. I'm very pleased to be here today with my good friend and the senior United Nations official, Harald Friedel, a national of Austria. So we consider Italians and Austrians some kind of cousins. For many centuries, we have shared borders and cultural heritage. And Harald and myself, we share a deep passion for the planet. Harald has done an amazing work in promoting sustainability, not only during his United Nations assignment, but more recently as a top consultant in the circular economy space, and currently in beautiful Miami, and working together on business ventures in the climate tech space. But he will tell you more about it during this episode. I should say that Harald is also a top voice on the LinkedIn platform with more than 100,000 followers, which is a great achievement. And so he can help us to broadcast widely and globally our message to reconstruct and reinvent the narrative about the global climate agenda. So Harald, welcome to this episode of
Thank you.
Planet Gold. It's very appreciated, your time and your commitment. So let's start with your life story. If you, from the mountains of Austria to the UN headquarters in New York and currently Miami, you have been traveling also the world. So tell us how this passion for the planet arose in your deep soul.
Yeah, thank you so much for your work and the work of your followers that you're bringing together with this podcast, but also your work more broadly, Enzo. Indeed, when one is fighting for the same cause, and this is to keep the planet in a good space for many generations to come. I think that's our need, but also our commitment. Then that's a real honor to share the time and share some thoughts. Indeed, I was born in Austria, but and always had the feeling I want to see the world, which brought me into all continents, working there. And I always had that feeling, this nudge inside me that was looking, how can I spend my time here during my lifetime in the best way possible? How can I have a good impact? And partly, always, it has to do with my soul's longing, and partly with my entrepreneurial spirit. So I found myself as an impact entrepreneur, truly, that has now brought me into civil society work, NGO work with, for example, Human Rights Watch in New York. I was also advisor to the Secretary General, Kofi Annan, opening up the UN to civil society. Then I also ran out of Myanmar in Asia, renewable energy companies, and I had the honor to work in politics as advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister, and I was spokesperson for the government. In all of this, I learned one thing: we are all connected, and that really drives me. And when you, I think, understand that deeply, there's only one thing to really do every day to contribute to that joint being together. And for this has become for me the circular economy, an economy that works for the planet, for the people, for us all. And at the moment, unfortunately, we have to explain to many people why we want to go back to a circular economy that should be, I think, the case for everybody, and not stay within the very extractive paradigm that has very many negative consequences at the moment. So happy to discuss it today, because I think innovation and entrepreneurship is a big driver in government and with businesses especially.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said that well, and we are all connected I define that concept as the interconnectedness of
Mm,
everything.
mm,
Because from the cells of our body to the
mm,
movements of the
mm,
planets in the cosmos, everything is connected. The
mm.
plants, the animals, human beings, the stones, um, all is energy in the end,
Yeah.
right? And so when we understand this concept, we can assimilate better
Mm,
this connection between the body and the planet.
mm,
And so this actually is the main assumption of my next book, which is actually Planet Gold, the planet through the body. And that will explain how this deep cellular connection is actually the solution to
mm,
reinvent the global climate agenda. But
mm.
let's focus on your work and on your vision, Harald. So we met in Davos, you remember, at the SDGs pavilion. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to hear from you how you feel this movement towards influencing the banking sector, the financial
Mm,
sector. As you say, you have been spokesperson for a government as well.
mm,
The political,
mm,
leadership. So I personally feel that during the last 5, 6 years, there has been a broader understanding that we need um, to move the political agenda towards sustainability.
mm,
The other thing that I understood is that business rules, money rules.
mm,
And so we need to find a way to influence politicians, investors, and bankers by explaining that they can still make a lot of money, but in a more sustainable fashion. So Davos can be a
mm.
very good asset in this perspective.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Mm. I think to put things into perspective a bit, we're talking about the World Economic Forum, really. It's dealing with the economics of everything. And then I think on the other hand, when you know how governments work, the economy is not only there for businesses, it's really an economy that's supporting the household. That's the old Greek word where it comes from, the household of a whole society. I'm an economist myself and a political scientist. It's sometimes, I think, difficult to give the things that not necessarily have a financial value a value, and I think that's where our system is going wrong. What many call, for example, the externalities, the whole pollution in the world has in the moment no value, and we're going to go into that a bit later. So the economic system can't fix all the problems and has problems in itself. That is a big issue. That therefore money cannot we have to be careful how we allocate money for the things we actually want to achieve. I think that's as a society a very important topic. I always feel very motivated when I join at the World Economic Forum. We've been organizing many panels there also to give more people a chance, especially also from other parts of the world and only the US and Europe, to have a voice there. I think it's always very important for me. And then it is a very special time in the year that doesn't happen very often, maybe also once for the climate negotiations at the end of the year, where people who are interested to drive also a global agenda come together. That is the big and unique opportunity in Davos, in the conversations we have with people. I think in the last years we have seen, because of the political and financial crisis and also wars going on, there's less focus on pursuing what's necessary under the climate and the green transformation agenda. And the topic has a bit become much more survival and their own political and economic interest. I think that's what we are seeing. Still amazing people there. And I think a lot of money in these times is looking for a new way to be invested. We see the biggest transfer of money from one generation to the next, a new generation that has a very different investment horizon and interest. And I think we have to harvest this.
Mm. That's very interesting, and I like to hear your perspective that, has different angles from mine. So the whole thing is to complement each other visions. But looking at what you say, the war scenarios globally, the transition in the US
Yeah,
administration, the speech of Europeans, of Chinese, of the Gulf, leadership. So I feel that there is still a discrepancy between the speech and the reality. And I
absolutely.
explain you what I mean by that. So the real economy is certainly more and more blue and green.
Yeah,
So if you see in the old technological space, and I would like to have your views also on the tech industry in a moment, but if you see the old tech industry is all moving towards
yeah,
mobility, towards sustainability. If you
yeah,
see China is leading despite Tesla is, the top kind of innovation in the automotive industry. But if you see really China is leading the
yeah.
self-driving industry, the green fuels, the solar panels, all that thing.
Mm,
And the US is trying to catch up in a way
yeah,
there. But obviously, economic reasons say, okay, let's keep pushing the fossil energy because we need energy now. We cannot wait for the clean hydrogen and the clean nuclear to be developed. So there is still a discrepancy between what politicians say they need to do
absolutely.
and what the real economy is moving towards.
Mm,
So what's
mm.
your feeling about it?
I would agree with you. There's a discrepancy. I think the politicians should be like 5 years ahead, and they should promote a framework where everything is moving into, to set the incentives, to set the policy framework. Businesses then can occupy that space. I think that that time frame is becoming shorter and shorter, and I would wish for sometimes more clear leadership, as you said, and decision making from governments and policymakers, so that business can take and do what is best at innovate. And indeed, we see a huge innovation drive at the moment. And as you said, China is in many industries the patent leader. I know, for example, in the cement industry, they are because there is a lot of innovation coming from there. As Europe, we have to speed up with our moving ahead, and therefore it's fantastic to have business leaders who do often more than they expected, move into that space, make things happen. And I think we need to create especially this ecosystem for change, like I think Tesla also did, by open sourcing a lot of technology years ago. They made sure the penetration rate of EVs is happening faster. And in a way, I think that is where politics can play a role to build that huge regional networks of innovation that we would like to see more of, especially when you are in a smaller continent with more political decision makers in Europe. So there, a stronger Europe, a more integrated Europe for me is the way forward to have a more innovative and green reindustrialization of the continent.
Mm, interesting, but this is not what the current political
Yeah,
dialogue is focusing on. I mean,
often not. No, you're right.
um, I don't know. I feel that the political leadership is simply lost. They
Mm,
obviously don't have the expertise and the knowledge to
mm,
drive such
mm,
massive transformations.
mm,
If you see even the European leadership, these are
mm,
traditional politicians that have
mm,
managed small portfolios in their own countries, and now
mm,
they are facing such global challenges without really having a business
mm,
perspective in mind. And
mm,
so, as politics have been has been doing since millennia, you solve conflicts through violence and weaponry and things like that. So there is a contradiction between the society, the real economy, and the politics that I want to help
Yeah.
simplifying and solving. And I go back to my concept that money rules. And, we like it or not, it's like that. So the point is to persuade the investors, the bankers, and the politicians that they can still make, their profit, which is actually what drives life. Because
Yeah.
if the economy doesn't prosper, then nobody can survive. So that's the thing. Now I give you an example, and I would like to have your opinion on that. The drones industry. So drones now are the technology that is being applied in all sectors, from
Yeah.
health to agriculture to war, to the military. So a drone is a drone, is a neutral machine. You can arm it with a weapon, or you can arm it with
Yeah.
surgery material to go in a remote area and assist communities. So this issue that we need to put so much money to arm or rearm countries. To me, it's very childish. It's very obsolete because, for instance, in the case of Europe, instead of competing militarily with other superpowers, it should compete technologically, or it should compete from a knowledge perspective, or it should be with a different vision. So the fact that we are trying to compete with nuclear arsenals that we will never be able to pair, or with technological spaces that we can also are not able to match. There should be innovation. And I
Yeah.
give the example of the drone because the drone is the simplest piece of technology. So how would you see, in the case of Europe and globally, innovation driving the climate agenda?
Huge, no? I mean, when you look back and see what has become possible through innovation in the last 10 years, a whole industry, the car industry that you also mentioned, becoming independent or more independent of fossil fuels. I think the whole drone industry is showing how we can build much more local economies because they make things suddenly much more approachable. I think in the area of new materials with AI, also huge innovation happen. I think we have to solve for two things or three things maybe. One is green energy. I think that is what will drive a lot of the innovation because the price of renewable energy still would need to drop, I think, in terms of its long-term provision also of electric power. I think that is one. And two, we need to make sure that we have the right governance. I think that is very important. Now, for example, AI, try to find a governance model that is kind of providing this main basic security. And you mentioned the defense industry, I think, in Europe. There we are playing a bit catch up. I mean, something that has been not done in the last 40, 50, 60 years since World War II is happening now. Childish, yes, in some way. I myself grew up in a divided Europe next to the Iron Curtain. And there is, I think, everybody understands that we need the basic security. And in that way, I think we shouldn't go for an arms race, but Europe should be united and have a strong defense because that's what countries and governments have. We didn't have that until now. And I think there is a basic kind of growing up phase that in Europe we are seeing militarily or from a security perspective that will be important. We also know that the military sector is an important innovation driver. So next to the security, that is kind of the puberty that Europe is going through now. A vision for a green industry, I think, is really important, and it's often missing. And so, and I totally agree with you on that. In this leaders meeting that I was also part of, for example, in the EU meetings, there often is no leadership and say we want to go there. A very clear commitment. For this, it's very good that also the big countries like Italy, Germany, France have leaders that say that is our goal where we can be together while we also keep the interests of our own national governments. So I think a green industry vision, green and energy transition that we need to just continue, and a very, very, very strong innovation component coupled with, and we discussed it, local economies. We have to give up these long supply chains where my shoes were made partly in Asia. They come then through the Middle East where they are manufactured and produced and then finally are ending up in Europe. And I think that is not the way forward. I think we have to be much more local in terms of the resource constraints that we need to see in a circular economy and be more realistic, and really focus on our own independence and a strong economy. I think that's what we can learn absolutely from America. A strong economy, a strong backbone of an industry that we need in Europe, and innovation absolutely at its core. And it's not all about innovation. It's about innovation, not all about tech. So we have to get the basic industries also again up to speed, and I think in a green and transformed way. So I'm very optimistic about this.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, I don't want to open the Pandora box of the European
No,
politics
we'll not solve
nowadays.
it today.
Yeah, it's that would deserve a more focused conversation. But the concept of circular economy is very interesting because I've been living in the United States for many, many years and in other regions of the world, and I can tell you that in Europe, this concept is much more radicated in the fabric of the economy and the society. And I think that this is the comparative advantage of the European economy, vis-a-vis, for instance, the American economy that is much more, an economy of scale and industrialized economy. So I think that innovation must be also creative, and as Europeans, we need to innovate sectors that are not competing with, these superpowers, but can add value to the global economy from different perspectives. And that's the brilliance that our political leadership should have. And unfortunately, it's very narrow-minded, and we need to do a lot of work to, educate and persuade and influence them so that they scale up the quality of their thinking and obviously of the political decision making. But Harald, let's go also a little bit deeper into the circular economy concept. So what your company does, because I know that you are a world leader in this sector, advising many entities, governments, and companies in this space. So what your company exactly provides?
At the moment, we are trying to make sure that we are going back to an economy that is circular, so it doesn't have all these negative externalities, and hopefully it's becoming regenerative. So it's becoming actually something that we can build with for the future. And we're going a bit away from this extractive mindset, and that is very short termed. So that's what we're standing for. You can do this by applying circular economy strategies. And I've been doing this the last 10 years now, and I was lucky enough to be the CEO of one of the main organizations in the world, Circular Economy out of Amsterdam. And the last 4 years have been advising the climate change negotiations, different companies, and also the United Nations in different countries to see how we can make an economy that is circular, that is net zero in emissions, that has local supply chains, and is ensuring that we are not producing waste. I think that is the most important thing we have to take into consideration, because waste is mostly a resource that can be used in a different place. And waste, if we have too much of it, it becomes actually very dangerous for us as human beings in terms of pollution, because we live in the dirtiest of all times. And I think as humankind, we can really do better.
Very, very interesting. Are you aware about Ecomondo? You know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the privilege to be there in a few months ago in Italy. So Ecomondo is the largest and biggest climate tech expo in the
Yeah.
world. It's organized by an Italian company that is also quoted in the stock exchange. It's the Italian Exhibition Group. And there are only three of these huge climate tech, green circular economy expos,
Yeah.
one in Italy, one in China, and one in Mexico. And the Italian one is the biggest. So I was there and I saw really the wealth of available technologies nowadays in terms of recycling waste. That was from the mobility sector to real estate, agriculture, fashion, and so on. So
Yeah.
the point is that technology is available. The private sector is doing, its job in creating those technologies and to manufacture them and to put them in the market. But once again, if the politics and the policies and the public budgets are not converging in that direction, then these companies have a very hard life.
Yeah.
So once again, I think that our job is really to work with decision makers, with political decision makers, including in the parliaments for the emanation of laws, and in the governments for the formulation of public policies, so that this new economy is incentivized, as you rightly said before, and so this transition is much faster and much more efficient.
Yeah.
So I will invite you also to the next
Yeah.
year's Ecomondo. It's a
Yeah.
huge, it's very beautiful to be there and see that vibrance
Yeah.
of entrepreneurship, of invention.
Yeah.
It's very, very beautiful. And now you are in Miami, and so my plan is to organize the biggest climate tech expo in Miami in
Fantastic.
2026. And
Yeah.
the reason why Miami is such a strategic hub is because covers the Caribbean and Latin America, and obviously in the climate tech space, particularly what I call extreme technologies. So those technologies that can support particularly the governments of the highlands of the Caribbean to prevent, mitigate, and respond to natural disasters. So while you are there, I encourage you to start thinking about how we can work together in that perspective.
That would be a big honor. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and there are people like you who really change the world. So Harald, while we moving towards wrapping up this conversation, I have a question that I do to all my guests, which is the following. So imagine you have a magic wand. So you have no restrictions in terms of imagination, in terms of resources, in terms of funding, and you would have the power to take a decision that would move the global climate agenda forward fast. What would you do?
Yeah, we know from the figures that there's enough money available for this transition. So I would put with my magic wand, change the incentives to put the money to good use that is lying around, because money lying around doesn't help anybody. And it should build the new infrastructure we need in the next 10 years. When you look into future films, it's all about the resources, it's about energy, to build that backbone of a clean energy industry that is powered by clean energy. To build that backbone, it's now the biggest clean up effort we've ever seen on the planet. We are cleaning up the world from all the microplastic that we have produced, and I think that is fantastic. and put that money really to good use. And on the other hand, in countries, see what do people really need. We need to provide for the many people that we have in our societies that are often now in fear. And as a human being, I wish that we can alleviate this pain, that we make sure there's a minimum security for everybody, because there is enough prosperity out there. So I'm a big believer on reducing the fear factor, but making sure that communities again can heal, can live together, and can provide for this future of an economy that is solid and that is not looking for extracting and trying to one is winning over the other, but that we are finding a way of existing with each other. Because the planet that you see here behind me is so beautiful, and it's so unique, that humankind, and when I worked in war zones, you can see the worst and the best in humankind. And I definitely believe that everybody wants and has a role to play in creating that future that works for many. So I would make sure the money is moving into the right direction, and that people who can make that happen also have a clear vision, which is not trying to get more for yourself only, but be in a place that we can create an economy together that is a local web, a circular and regenerative economy that is providing for everybody.
So beautifully said. That's, gives me, shakes my soul and my body. It's very interesting. I congratulate you to have this vision, and looking forward to, working continuously and moving, elevating the impact that we can have, more massively and worldwide, because there is certainly a new evolution of humanity. People like us, and there are so many. As you saw in Davos, there was a very vibrant community around
Yes.
these issues. Probably, the first time in the history of that. Side of the world. But I'm very optimistic and very motivated. I thank you for what you do. I look forward to doing more and more together to engage other like-minded people like us, who are inventing, who are shaking the foundations of the economy and the society. And enjoy Miami as well. And we'll speak soon.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. And thank you, everybody who had the patience to listen and took the time for that. Thank you so much, Enzo.
Wonderful. Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.